things, of all of them doing the same thing at the same time, it's pretty improbable that they would do that because there are mechanical or computer errors in it. But it does happen.
And again,
and that's what the global.
Okay, so what?
It could be all hooey, but that's what they're saying. Okay. There's
right. So what? I mean, what can you conclude from that fact?
Yeah. Actually, Jim's asking a good question because that's where I'm at. What are you concluding from this? I'm trying to understand the entailment.
Well, I don't know what to conclude from it, but one thing I can make a conclusion because I'm not a scientist, and I don't know enough about it to make a conclusion. But this is what happens. What do you?
But you called in for. Oh, okay. So that last part might have cleared up. If you're just calling in to see what we think about it, well, one, I care about looking into things a little longer and not just making a conclusion. I'm just offering something that could be problems just on the face of it. I'd have to look at it. The second of Google search I've already seen.
Yeah.
Why scientists actually are critical of this, and I just listed out the equipment malfunction and the fact that there's no entailment, that the anomalies couldn't be explained by statistical fluctuations. But there's more you have to look into on that, especially maybe inferential statistics or something that I'm not really sure that you just look at this data and say, great. The whole point of science is to repeat this, to test this. I don't even know what would falsify this unless it's just that you wouldn't see some type of right. But even then, it's the entailment that it must be this thing just seems like a dichotomy that I'm not really willing to entertain.
I don't even know how you get it. How do you get a testable hypothesis out of this, and what are your independent and dependent variables off of this data? I mean, how do you falsify it? How do you do anything with it? It's interesting, but if you can't conclude anything from it, then why do we care?
Well, we care because I would say for not just for knowledge in general. I mean, a lot of people for centuries have tried to understand why we exist, why we're here, what our purpose is. And
right, but what does any of those questions have to do with these random numbers? Right, I don't know. See, again, I'm asking how do we go about testing this?
Are you guys breaking my balls?
Because I'm literally trying to figure out what the purpose is.
That's actually how I feel about what you're saying. I feel like you're breaking my balls. That's how I feel. So that's ironic. But look, I don't know if we're going to make. I mean, Jim, if you want to finish up this, but I want to move on to some other callers. So I don't want to spend all the time. No, it's nothing against this, John. It's just I don't know what utility this has in the discussion. If we don't even know what the entailment even is. The fact that we think we've exhausted potential explanations on the hypothesis seems really sloppy to me, but I want to hold off on that because there's more I want to look at. I don't want to just be rash.
Wait a minute. I've also wanted to talk about how religion has damaged the world, particularly.
Sure, we're probably going to agree on that, and so we have some theist callers in the queue, so I'd like to get to a theist caller then. We're just going to turn into potentially us just agreeing, and I don't really know that makes for an interesting show.
I'm an agnostic, but the thing about it is this. Atheists take this idea that, well, there's a bunch of silly atheists. I'll give you 5 minutes to prove there's God on your show. And I think that is, to prove something like that, you need extraordinary proof, and you're not going to prove it in a phone call. So I don't know if there's God, and I don't really care one way or the other. And the point of it is,
if you don't care, why are you calling an atheist?
Atheists shouldn't live in atheists shouldn't really care. But what they should be.
Yeah, it looked like he dropped, but I didn't do that. I was actually thinking about dropping just after atheists shouldn't care because there's immense reasons to care, right? It affects everybody's life. Not even just on the theism part, just if you zoom in on how you apply critical thinking to every bit of your life. If you allow for one thing that magic all of a sudden gets to enter in unjustified, then you can make the same unjustified move, same chess move, which I would say is not even a chess move, just like throwing the chess pieces off the board and like giving up. But you can make that same move with everything. And I don't want to live in a world with people that all make the same dumb chess move, right? I want to live in a world with people where we have more cooperation, mutual understanding, empathy towards our experiences. I don't want to. I don't. This question matters. This is what sows divide in so many societies, especially the one that I live in. So, but Jim, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, and we care because beliefs inform actions. Actions have consequences. If you have a belief that some book written, in the Bronze Age or later, says hate the gays, and then you start a therapy process that basically tries to torture the gay out of somebody, you're evil. I don't care what the book says. But that's, your belief informed your action, and those actions have consequences. And so we want to try and live in a world where we have as many true beliefs as possible, so that our actions are as correct as possible, so that we minimize the negative consequences as much as possible. That's why we care.
Yeah, I don't think people really realize how, people I talk to, family members, friends that are like fence sitters, how much these conversations do help. It applies a really easy way to have things streamlined to you, where you can then go, oh, this person said this thing in a debate or discussion. Let me go look at that independently. Where you might not have the tools to even like think in your head, like, okay, well, what should I look at? Like, it's like cleaning a messy room. You don't even know where to start. But you have these discussions, and it kind of guides you towards the direction in the room to clean up, right? Some type of error in the way that you think, and that can over time just build up, right? It's an amalgamation that allows you to reason. I mean, for me, coming from, I wasn't like religious or I believe in God, but I had a really weird spiritual and borderline conspiracy theory beliefs. I am so grateful that I had heard the conversation and talked to people I did, because I couldn't have done it by myself. And I feel like a better person because of it. And I noticed that people who come to that conclusion usually impact the world for a better, from my perspective. But anyway, if you like what we do and you want to support us, there are many ways to support the Atheist Experience and the ACA. Become a member for as little as 99 cents a month. All you have to do is click the join button below. It'll give you access to special chat emojis that you can flex on the other chat members in the chat. The Atheist Experience is also just one of the shows put on by the ACA, so make sure that you check out all of our other shows as well. Secular Sexuality on Thursdays, starting at 7 p.m. Central. Truth Wanted on Fridays at 7 p.m. And then we have our Sunday shows, Talk Heathen at 1 p.m. The Nonprofits is on right after this show at 3 p.m. Central. And then, of course, you have the Atheist Experience at 4:30 Central. Lastly, you can support us on Patreon by going to tiny.cc/PatreonAXP. If that interests you, it's gratefully appreciated in any way that you support the ACA, the Atheist Experience, Truth Wanted, Secular Sexuality, and the Nonprofits. Everything matters and counts, makes the show good. It helps the crew work beautifully in the way that they do, so we appreciate it. We're going to go ahead to John in Canada. Pronouns are he, him, and wants to, I guess, ask the hosts why we don't believe in God. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, it's correct. I want to know why don't you believe in God?
Sure, Jim, do you want to start?
Lack of evidence. I started making an investigation as a Catholic. I started getting into Catholic apologetics and realized that the apologetics pretty much suck rocks, and that I didn't have any real evidence for any of my beliefs, and realized that that means I couldn't support the God claim. It wasn't quite that cut and dry, but that's pretty much the summation of it. So I usually describe it as I wandered out of Catholicism and Christianity rather than having a come to Jesus moment, as some other atheists have had. But yeah, just a complete and total lack of any kind of good, solid evidence for any type of God that's been presented to me so far.
Yeah, and I've never believed in God, so I've never affirmed the proposition that God exists. I had more like spiritual beliefs when I was much younger, when I was what I would consider confused, trying to navigate the world. And spawned to excuses that sound like platitudes that sounded nice at the time. But for me, I never had good reason to believe, and then the more I got into philosophy and science, the more I actually came to the conclusion that I don't think gods exist at all. Do I have absolute certainty on that? No, I don't. But my position is that I'm a naturalist, so my position is that there is nothing but natural causal entities, and so that just rules out gods. And the type of argumentation I would take is a worldview comparison, where I just would make the claim that naturalism is going to be favored. It's going to make less ontological commitments, and it's going to explain all the data. If I have one marble that explains why another marble got knocked off, there's no reason to add 2 or 3 or 4 because it doesn't actually have any explanatory power. And I think theism, more or less, is the same. So that would be a rough structure of why I don't believe.
So, guys, a question. What is the harm of religion, if you don't mind me asking?
Jim?
The harm of religion? Yeah, so we can start with Catholicism. We can start in, the early days when it first became a major religion in Rome. They passed laws on 2 different occasions making not being a Christian the death penalty. We can go to the Crusades. We can go to the Spanish Inquisition. We can go to the Spanish Conquistadors. We can go to the fact that Christianity was spread not by the quality of the arguments, but the quality of the violence. We can go to, if we want to go to more modern times, we can go to the suppression of LGBTQIA rights and the suppression of LGBTQIA people in general also. We can go to people supporting, attempting to torture the gay out of people. We can go to the way Christians treated Native Americans, both in Canada and the United States, forcing their kids to go to school so they can become westernized and Christianized. We can talk about a wide variety of beliefs that inform actions and the negative consequences those actions have. All because somebody says something in a book that is either 66 books or 73 books, depending on whether or not you're Catholic. A bunch of men, probably not white men, but men, curated to tell a single story and edited to tell that story. So, of course, it tells a story. And the real problem with that is you have over 1,000 denominations, all of whom disagree. And we've had wars over those disagreements. We've had 30 Years' War, the War of Religion in France, and all because they interpret this book differently, and they're willing to commit and die over it because they believe it's the truth. And you've got this edited, curated book that 1,000 different denominations completely disagree on fundamental points that is supposed to be as true as 1 + 1 = 2. And if we take any other piece of evidence for anything and end up with 1,000 different interpretations of that evidence would be considered bad. And yet, because it's religion, it's not. It must be true. I don't think it is. And all of that just comes back to people using that as an excuse to do the evil they want to do anyway.
I would probably agree with all of that. So instead of going and just highlighting the same stuff, if you want to, John, I don't know if you want to comment on any of that, what we've answered, or if this is like 20 questions, or what we're doing.
I understand that. I do have one more question though. Sure. Why is Christianity being suppressed? Because I've noticed that when someone writes a Christian book or someone wears a shirt saying Jesus loves you, the people they're accosted or they're arrested. I just want to know why that is.
Arrested.
Christian oppression in the United States? How do you have Christian oppression when 80% of the country? How do you have Christian oppression when 80% of the country is Christian? How do you have Christian oppression when all the senators and members of the House, but I think 3 or 4 are Christian? When the entire Supreme Court is Christian?
Yeah.
When most of the state legislatures are Christian? And if you're an atheist, you almost can't get elected in this country. So when you say Christian oppression, what do you mean?
Okay, here's an example. Kirk Cameron wrote a book for children about Christianity. You can't read it in the library, but the same library will let trans people read the book to children. So I want to know what.
In what library? In what library can't you get it?
A library in the United States.
Which library? Public libraries? If it's not in a public library, probably because it's not a very good book and it's not requested very often. If it's a school library,
which doesn't surprise me since it's Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to know. I just want to know why that is. Please tell me.
Well, you'd have to ask the libraries involved. If it's a school library, it's because of separation of church and state. If it's a public library, then that shouldn't be a problem, and you'd have to go ask the public libraries. But I would suggest that it's because Kirk Cameron can't write a good book.
Yeah, whether the book is good or bad,
let me hold on real quick, because there's part of that I wanted to tack on prior to that, which is I don't know if you know what it's like. I mean, I'm not trying to put this whole like it sucks to be an atheist in a world that's mainly Christian, but you have to understand there's times where I've in the past been afraid to mention that I'm atheist because I know how these people will react, because the majority of the time it's Christian people. At jobs, I had told someone at a job as an atheist, nobody would they all looked at me like I was like the devil himself afterwards. I could tell things changed. My life has been impacted in real time by just mentioning that I don't believe in God, right? So I don't really know that the oppression there suits, at least, especially in my personal experience. And then the Kirk Cameron thing, I don't even know if you're just making that up, right? It just
I'm not making it up.
Okay, well, so what's your claim? Your claim is that because Kirk Cameron can't get a book and like Christianity is
Kirk Cameron is just one example. I'm also talking about the fact that anyone who seems to be atheist seems to be getting preferential treatment.
What?
People who are LGBT are getting preferential treatment.
Prove it.
Prove it? Okay.
Are you kidding me? We can't even get people to acknowledge that we have equality in this domain, right? We can't even get people to acknowledge like simple rudimentary things that are discussed in these conversations on trans rights, or even just being trans in general, right? We can't even get people to like listen to the information, and you want to say it's privilege towards them. No, not at all. What are you talking about? Like this whole deconstructing of the norms that we have is what is oppressing everybody now. Right? We have to deconstruct these norms. This is what
are you talking about? What are you talking about?
The norms that look, the reason it's so hard is because of these religious norms that have been oppressed on us. You have it backwards. I don't understand how you can think this, right? I mean, this is in no way.
I want to know how you're being oppressed. How are you being? Tell me, how are you being oppressed?
Your claim, right, Christianity was oppressed, and you've yet to substantiate that. So if we can get that substantiated, I'll be happy to move on to the next thing. Your claim has not been justified. How do you justify, other than Kirk Cameron can't get a book, and I have issues because I don't understand what's going on in the debate surrounding trans people, that you're going to all of a sudden just say that there's an oppression on your side, right? Because I'm in these conversations, and I don't see that ever the case. I just see a dearth of knowledge from the other side.
I don't understand what you just said. I don't understand.
A dearth of knowledge, a lack of knowledge.
What do you mean a lack of knowledge? What are you talking about?
Jim,
do you want
to?
I can't.
He's just going off.
I just can't do this.
I can't either. But so the bottom line is, trans people are people, and they deserve the same rights as everybody else. Nobody's giving them a special place. We're just trying to bring them up so they're at the same place at the table as everybody else, and that is simply not the case. You have people right now who are denying that they exist. You have people who are claiming it is nothing more than a mental condition. You have people who are claiming that they're Satanists. You have people who are claiming that they're not natural. You have people and actively harming them and in some cases. So, and this is LGBTQIA, right? We had, what was it, a number of years ago, we had a young man in Montana who was dragged just because he was gay. We've got shootings at nightclubs just because people are gay. We have a wide variety of violence just because people are gay. And in terms of what states are doing, we have a wide variety of state legislatures who are attempting to get in the way of doctors and their patients and to legislate medical practice simply because some trans folks want to complete their transition and they need a doctor's help to do so. So again, you can't compare the oppression that is going on with the LGBTQIA community and Christians who are still the dominant political force, even though their power is waning, they're still the dominant political force. So again, where do you get any type of Christian persecution?
Okay, let's put gay people aside. I want to ask you this question.
You're going to answer the question?
Yeah, I'm asking you a question. Is it your goal to get rid of Christianity out of the United States completely? Is that your goal? Is that what you want? I'm asking.
No.
I want to be.
No.
What?
No, my goal is to have people believe as many true things as possible and as few false things as possible. That's my goal.
Okay, well, what's the difference, though? I want to know.
Did you just admit that Christianity is not a true belief?
I want to know what your goal is. Let's assume
I just told you what my goal is.
Let's assume that I'm Christian. Would you let me be Christian without any interference?
Yeah, you can be.
I'm not interfering with your Christianity now. Why would I do so in the future?
Okay, so I just want to know.
My family's Catholic. I'm not trying to stop them. The thing I'm trying to stop is the only people. Look, it's really simple. I would like to show people and explain to them why I think they're wrong, but you have to be. I'm not going to force someone who's not willing to come into the conversation. There's a line in the sand in these conversations. You can step over the line like you're doing now and call the show or have debates and discussions, right? You can do that, and at that point, you do have to defend your beliefs. That's the arena that you've come into. I can't just go up to you and say, like, defend your beliefs to me, right? You don't owe me shit. You don't owe me anything. But the problem is, if you care about this, you care about the repercussions, you care about how this affects people, especially trans people, or the conversation, the main point of what you're talking about, oppression, and we enter this arena, then you have to come with the actual facts. You want to say when you come in here that, like, the oppression's on your side. You've yet to substantiate that. You've said Kirk Cameron can't read a book in a library. Okay, granted. I don't know how that's all of Christianity is oppressed, right? We don't have the amount of violence that's happening on the other side.
They'll let a trans person read the same library.
Right. There's no need to start yelling, bro. It's okay. Calm down. All we need to do is get you to substantiate what your claim was, or we're moving on, because you've done a piss poor job at showing why Christians are oppressed. So, but Jim, if you want to continue, I'm going to take you off mute, John, and then we'll give you one last chance after Jim does what he wants to say, and then if you don't substantiate it, we're going to move on.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a single substantiatable claim to be made of Christian persecution in the United States.
Okay, here it is. The fact that little boys and girls are being subjected to trans rights, and the fact that little boys have to train.
Oh, there we go. We're done.
I knew it.
We're done. We're done. Yeah, we knew it.
Yep.
Another transphobe.
Resorting. Yeah, I mean, there's no way when someone finally gets to that, lead them to the water, that wasn't already baked into their piss poor ability to substantiate it. It's always this emotional type of view that they have, where they can't even apply a justification for why they have such an emotional view. And then instead of applying something that's going to justify, where we can actually move, hey, we're open. Do you have a good reason? It just turns out that you all have shitty reasons every single time, right? And when we ask you to substantiate it, you never do. All right. So if you shop on Amazon, you can support the ACA at no cost to you. Simply visit tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA, tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA, and designate the Atheist Community of Austin as your selected charity. And Amazon will donate a portion of their profit directly to the ACA. And also, if you're not aware, we have a channel that houses all of the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. Just visit tiny.cc/AEN podcast, and there you can listen to all the latest shows from the Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, Secular Sexuality, the Nonprofits, and any others in the future, past. Just go check it out. And we also have 3 Facebook groups that are run by fans, for fans. I find this to be extremely important for people that they listen to these calls or they watch the show and they're like, I want to do this, I want to debate or talk with some theists. This is a really good way to kind of enter into it or continue it if you already have. You can go to tiny.cc/FBAXP, and that's the Atheist Experience fan group. There is also the Atheist Experience private fan group where you can interact with others without having those interactions appear on your public feed at tiny.cc/FBAXPPR. That's tiny.cc/FBAXPPR. And we also have a new group, the Atheist Experience fan group, Atheist versus Theist Debates. I see this actually pop up in my feed a lot, where you can try out some of the arguments on theists and atheists alike. And you can find that at tiny.cc/AXP fan debates. There's a lot of traffic. Might have to have like 4 or 5 eventually and break them all up because there's so much. It's a lot of engagement on there. It's really good. You're not going to be short of a theist or an atheist to talk to. We're going to go ahead. We're stacking up some calls, so I'm going to go ahead. And I don't know, Jim, do you have your call in studio open? Do you want to pick a call or you want me to?
I was on mute there for a second. I don't know.
What the fuck?
I was looking at Mark, but I didn't know if.
God damn it! What the fuck?
All right, Mark from New York, the God of the Gaps fallacy is what you want to talk about. It says you'd like to eliminate it from your thinking. You want to elaborate on maybe something specific there?
Yes, exactly. This comes up a lot because a lot of the arguments are, I think, abductive arguments for God's existence, and they kind of work, I think, in the same type of fashion that the way scientific theories are developed, which is there's an observation and then there's a hypothesis and there's an inference to, there's basically an inference to the best explanation, which looks at competing hypotheses. And this then, what comes up when you discuss these arguments is the objections a lot of times are like, well, you're just raising the God of the gaps fallacy. And it's tough to actually, I'm very cognizant of that, and I don't want to fall down that trap. I don't want to make a God of the gaps argument because I don't think that's really a valid argument.
Sure. So, well, I have a solution on one way to separate, given what you said about science. One way to separate that, novel prediction. Do you know what novel predictions are?
Sure.
Yeah, the new something new we predict, we find in the future. We say there's maybe there's some fault. Maybe Pangea is true. We unify some theories of science. We look at the eastern coast of eastern coast of South America and the western coast of Africa. We look at the geological column. We say, my hypothesis, something crude, is we'll find the same species in some layer in the geological column. We go look, we find it. Right? Novel prediction confirmed, unifies other theories, archaeology, maybe geology, unifies more than just evolutionary biology. Really, really good evidence, and it's going to be hard to claim like a God of gaps or a naturalism of the gaps or a science of the gaps, some people want to say, because it's actually doing something and having predictive success, generating prediction. Would you agree with that? If you had that, you can knock out the God of the gaps thing. You can just have some novel prediction, and you're not making it up, right? You've actually generated a predictive outcome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do agree with that. I'm trying to connect that element that you just mentioned to the broader issue. So maybe if I can give a couple examples to illustrate what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The initial way I was thinking of describing it was there's one move that sometimes theists make that I think is almost like the opposite of the God of the gaps, which is, are you familiar with like the term theistic evolution?
Well, like intelligent design?
Yeah, it's sort of like it's a variation on intelligent design where it's a version of intelligent design where it's kind of saying like there's kind of different versions of theistic evolution, but like one of the variations is that that evolution is an unguided, undirected process, sort of like at the level that we observe it, but God is really pulling the strings from above, like He's really orchestrating.
Oh, that has an immediate issue off the bat. Like off the bat, if it's explained already by the unguided processes, then what is the explanatory role of adding intentional states? That right? What is that doing? Because you can just shave off the God part if you have a full explanation of the phenomena, right? It's like the marble thing I said to someone on the other call, which is that all we're doing is saying, oh, it's two marbles that knocked it off, but we have complete evidence that it was only one marble that knocked it off, right? So we're arbitrarily adding some extra thing, and it's not ontologically like economical, right? Because why not two gods? Why not three gods? Right? Why not a god wearing a little hat juggling some balls? Right? Why? So that's going to be an issue there immediately for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, and even from like a theistic perspective, it's like kind of like, I mean, there's the same kind of problems arise. Like it's just like it's not a very coherent viewpoint, but it kind of insulates the theist from falsification and kind of insulates their worldview because they could just say like, sure, there's evolution, but God is really orchestrating the evolution.
But I can just do that with any phenomena, like I can, like, what, like anything I can pick out in the world. All I have to do is just say, well, there's some entity that desires the outcome, has the ability to produce the outcome, and doesn't have reasons not to produce the outcome, and then boom, you can explain anything with that. But that's just like a just so story. It's not, you're not predicting, right? You're not making like the thing that would be essentially, that view is divorced from the thing that I was saying earlier, like novel predictions, which sounds like, I mean, I'm not saying this towards you because this isn't your view, but if you're trying to, as the call screener says, trying to eliminate God of the gaps, it says you're a theist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're trying to eliminate that, I mean, that's one way I'd offer it. To me, it always seems very clear that this is just some way to create a story. You can create stories all day long. The difference between a story and something that's going to be viable is, in my opinion, novel predictions. That's how you can confirm. It constrains your reasoning. Whereas the other one, there's no constraint. I can interpret anything so long as I have this hypothesis in the background that there's an entity that desires the outcome, has the ability for the outcome, and doesn't have reasons not to produce the outcome. Then I'm solved every issue I could ever want. But I'm missing a crucial thing, which is being able to falsify it, or being able to verify it, or being able to produce a predictive outcome, because everything is predicted on that hypothesis. Every single thing is predicted on that hypothesis.
Right. No, absolutely. So for example, I mean, I kind of like your point about the predictions, but like even using that as an example, like in the intelligent design field, Stephen Meyer, who is an intelligent design proponent, he's written like a few books on the topic, Signature in the Cell, Darwin's Doubt, and he includes, I think, in Signature in the Cell, a list of predictions that he thinks flow from his view of intelligent design. And he thinks some of them have been validated, like that there would be, that we would find, like, I think the term he uses, like, junk DNA. And so
I don't know how that would be predictive on the hypothesis, though, because it seems that the hypothesis can explain any data. It could explain a world with just marbles, right? A god with all you have to do is have an entity that desires such an outcome. So whatever you have in there, that's why I'm saying this view doesn't even seem like you could produce novel prediction. It seems like it's divorced. It seems like it's shutting itself off from such an event because it can explain any type of outcome. Whatever world we find ourselves in, you could use this hypothesis as a just so story, it seems like. But I don't know, Jim, if you want to. Or no, go ahead. I'm sorry. If anybody, whoever. Yeah, one of you guys.
Yeah, I think, first, looking at the falsifiability issue, how do you falsify the claim that, however evolution works, God is behind the scenes, pulling strings? How do you falsify that? And you can't. In fact, not only can't you falsify it, how would you even create a hypothesis, testable hypothesis, right? What are your independent and dependent variables that you have to state in your hypothesis for it to be considered a good scientific hypothesis? How would you go about testing it, much less falsifiability? And you can't test that, right? We don't have a test for God or the supernatural. And then to go to the predictability, God did it. Okay, so what does that mean? If we know how storms form, that gives us a lot of predictability. Now we can actually forecast storms. We can forecast hurricanes and tornadoes. We can do all this stuff. But if we stop with, what causes weather phenomena? God. Now what do we predict? So I don't know. We can't predict anything at that point, right? We can't predict storms because God did it. It stops everything with that explanation, and it's unfalsifiable. So I don't know what it, J. Mike mentioned earlier, I don't know what it brings to the table. It doesn't seem to bring anything to the table that's useful for scientific inquiry or for improving life here on Earth.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, and I wanted to mention that because I think that's like kind of to the furthest end of the spectrum. And, but then you have other intelligent design proponents who don't take that line. And so, like the example I mentioned earlier with Stephen Meyer, like he's not taking that line in Signature in the Cell. And basically what he does is critiques the evolutionary theory, and I guess within that process, because I agree with you, I actually haven't read those books, but I just know from listening to him, following like some of his debates, that he does make predictions in Signature in the Cell about certain things that we might expect to find.
Yeah, but doesn't the hypothesis? So this is the problem I have with it, real quick, is that I want to look at this because I'm always happy to see a theist, at least attempt some novel predictions, and that's great. At least we're getting somewhere and not doing like the big circle. The problem I have, though, is the problem that I have or that I see is that there's going to be so much baked in there. God's a loving God. He desires to create. I mean, look at like the fine tuning, for example, right? We have like just to show the parallel. Okay, all the parameters could be one way. It happens to be some way, and then we explain it. God has these desires that can, that's why, right? He has this desire. We bake this in, but we don't realize that we're singling out a desire that he has, which it could be anything, a desire for just rocks in the universe, a desire for no life. We just somehow single out this desire like it's explaining anything, when in fact, it seems like God's desires in this case are going to be fine-tuned, right? It seems like we're having this weird notion of why is God's desire so privileged? The point I'm trying to say is that we're motivating and baking in a lot of these things that haven't on their own been independently justified. It's motivating the hypothesis, right? God's loving, he wants life, he wants to create DNA or junk DNA. You bake all that into the hypothesis, and it seems to get the outcome that you want, but it doesn't seem like it's actually unifying like any phenomena independently. You see what I'm saying? It seems like it's not just like a bare bones theism hypothesis. It has all these extra kind of baked in motivations, and that's where it seems to become just like a just so story to me, or just somebody telling me something that has a bunch baked into it already, which you can get the outcome that you want.
Right. No, you can. I mean, somebody like Stephen Meyer, like he's He has a PhD from either Oxford or Cambridge in the philosophy of science. Like, he's very steeped in the scientific method. He's very careful. Like, he's not somebody who, like, he's not going to put any assumptions into these hypotheses. Like, he's very bare bones in how he goes about it. And he works for the Discovery Institute, and they're intelligent.
Oh man, no.
Yeah, we know who they are. Yeah.
Are you familiar?
But unfortunately.
Oh god, yeah. There's really
yeah.
good. I'm not gonna open like there's a lot of good stuff that you can look on the tubes on the internet of people actually just completely demolishing and destroying the Discovery Discovery Institute. I always want to say the Discover Institute. Yeah,
Discovery Institute. Yeah,
and
it's not hard.
It's not hard, but there's long videos that will go over each individual person. I think James Tor or whoever is a part of that, but. I do have to cut this short because I want to get to callers. I'm trying to be better as host and get to as many callers as I can. That might be a fault of me, so just remind me in the comments. Just tell me, hey, go through callers quick because this is a fault I have. But Mark, I do want to give you like a last word before we move on. But I do want to try to get to these other callers.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, there is an ongoing debate going on right now, like on the YouTube sphere between James Tor, Dr. Tor, who doesn't take that line. He's not an intelligent designer. He thinks eventually we will be able to explain the origin of life through naturalistic process, but he's a theist, and the Discovery Institute kind of uses him as a proxy of sorts because he's extremely well renowned in chemistry, and he's able to sort of poke holes in the origin of life community that really I think they kind of do a disservice because they do such an exaggeration, and somebody like Dr. Tor is able to kind of expose it, and it doesn't make them look good. So this is obviously an ongoing debate.
I would look at Tor because Tor's papers people write, his colleagues will criticize him. This is very clear and open. You can go find colleagues criticizing him on this. That's why I said go look on the tubes. I'm not going to directly promote other channels on the channel, but there are a lot of places that you can go look at this and the papers, responses, papers that have been responded or that are in response to James Tor. The picture that's painted on this side is just so far from reality. Right? It's just so far from reality in terms of how their colleagues are interpreting this. I mean, a lot people have openly expressed that they're concerned on James Tor's knowledge here with it and how he displays it and the types of things he says. But Mark, I do have to go get into other calls and get to promo, but we do appreciate it. Call in. I'm not on next week. Call in any week, but if you want to talk to me specifically, call on. Look ahead and see if I'm on, and I'd be glad to go into more of that stuff. Or Forrest. Forrest is someone you could definitely call.
Forrest would be the good one, yeah.
So, yeah, that is definitely not my expertise in the slightest. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a promotional break. If you have missed any of the stuff in the past for the shows that you could watch either here on YouTube or on the AEN Podcast Network, here's what you have missed this week.
And I've just had this horrendous day, this horrendous week, and I just flop down in there, and I'll stick on one of the reality TV shows on your over-the-top streaming service of choice, and I will just go, I'm better than you.
It is said by those who know, if you walk beneath old Joe as its clock chimes, you shall fail your exams. So we did it on purpose and both of us passed.
It's almost been an episode of we've been bookended by religious nasties and had some quite cool people in the middle. It's been like a jerk sandwich with a lovely filling.
I'm not saying that I am instantly friends with every trans person or I have loads in common with every single trans person. There are people who are trans who that is the only thing we have in common. I hate them, but because we're both atheist and we're both trans, we run in the same circles.
The spiritual
faculty of our heart, and logic itself is a created transcendental category created by God that we can communicate with through our spiritual energy.
That was enough word salad to end world hunger, literally. All right. Whoa, Jim, what happened?
I guess I teleported in here and I don't know what happened.
Special guest, student Dr. Ben. Everybody applause in your homes or wherever you are. Just give a little applause.
Yeah, what happened was I heard the talk about evolution and I was like, oh, I'm being summoned. I'm being summoned, and then I showed up.
Yeah, so there's some potential connection issues. We want to make sure we streamline the show with the connection that's for the sake of the audience that there isn't going to be having any connection issues or dropouts. And so no shame to Jim. He actually had a celebrity yacht party to attend, and so we let Jim off on the celebrity yacht parties. But now, anyway, Ben, we're glad to have you. I'm gonna get through at least as many callers as we can. But is there anything you want to say kind of before we do, or before I get into this?
Let's just jump in. Let's go.
Sweet. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody that we have merch. Just visit tiny.cc/merchaca for your AXB t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, or even our limited edition t-shirts. You can, there they are on the screen right there. You can check all those out. Those could be available to you just by going to tiny.cc/merchaca. And right below the chat, you'll notice, not the join button, but right below the chat, you'll see a donate now button. That button actually gives donations directly to the ACA without having YouTube taking a cut. And that is the best way that you can support us. So if you want to support us in the best way you can, out of any of the options, that one directly goes to the ACA. And finally, before we get to this call, big shout out to the crew. They're making the moves, checking all the connects, all that good stuff, making the face filters for me to look halfway decent. So shout out to all of the lovely crew right there on your screen and that lovely bookshelf. All right, anyway, so we will go to calls. Ben, do you have call-in studio open? Do you want to choose?
I've got it open.
Yeah, then give you the honors.
Oh man, we got a lot of good stuff here.
That's so special. I get 2 hosts today.
Yeah. We all just want to hang out with J Mike. That's it. Let's talk to Ed from New York. It sounds like you want to talk about you can't prove a negative, but you think that you can. I'm curious about what you mean by this.
Yeah, because I might agree with you in one sense, deductively maybe, but yeah, what do you?
Well, here's what I mean, and really it's just a thought exercise. Just as you can prove that you cannot squeeze an 800-pound gorilla into a 12-ounce can of soda, you can prove negatives. So I would like to know who has proven that there is no God, and when they did the proof, I'd like to read it.
Well, good luck, right? Because I don't think that anybody is going to have this argument that comes over from the top of the mountains and just pummels you into submission, right? There's going to be...
Oh, so no one has proven it? No one has proven that there is no God? Is that what you're saying?
So,
okay, Jesus.
So, I know, I don't claim...
Relax.
You have proven it. I want to hear proof.
Okay. Hold on, Ed,
stop being emotional. Seriously.
So,
That's a bad look.
I don't make the claim that there is no God. I'm not arguing from that position. Also, your analogy has a little bit of a problem to it because, yeah, I mean, within the current context of this planet, under these the laws of physics as they exist on planet Earth, you'd be right about you cannot squeeze a gorilla into a tube or whatever. But could there be a context where that would be possible? Possibly. There's a lot that we don't know about physics, especially you think about black holes and the stuff that happens with that. There's a lot that is counterintuitive, scientifically even, that I don't know for sure if it is impossible for that to happen. I just know that it is very unlikely within the current parameters in this context. So I don't agree with you there.
Ed, you're off mute, so if you want to respond, I don't appreciate that you interrupted me, but I'll let you respond to Ben. Oh, I guess. Well, that was all it took, Ben. That was all it took. Congrats. That was I should have shut up from the beginning, I guess. All right, we're gonna go ahead on to I don't know. Pick another. That wasn't fair to you, Ben. Pick another one because I don't know what happened there.
Let's take Dave from the Netherlands. This one sounds fun.
Sweet.
It sounds like you can checkmate at least 3 major religions. I'm curious what your argument is.
Hello?
Hi, Dave.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Welcome.
I can't believe I'm on the show. It's the first time trying, and I waited for maybe 15 minutes, so maybe it's not fair, but...
Well, so, yeah, I mean, I do want to say, to anyone in the queue, apologize, and if we don't ever get to your calls, I think hosts are better than me at that, so you could probably direct your hate directly to me. So I do apologize.
Okay, that makes it easy for me. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah,
maybe we could do some God bashing together.
Well, I mean, I'm not. So for me, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not interested. Like, this is nothing against other atheists. I'm really not interested in the echo chamber. Like, I want opposition. So I'm not really interested in just kind of like talking about that stuff. If you have a position that you want to talk about, we can discuss briefly. But I do try to move on from atheist callers a little bit quicker. That's nothing personal towards you. It's just this show for the sake of the audience and even selfishly for myself. So.
Okay, I had this random thought, and I was wondering that maybe it made sense. So I'd like to ask you a few questions concerning the major 3 religions, that's Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So is it true that God in those religions makes the decision to send people to hell?
So I didn't hear the first part. It says, what was it about sending them to hell?
Is it God who decides to send people to hell, or at least their soul?
It's going to depend on who you talk to. I've had every answer from every position from a theist or a Christian, so I don't think that they have it together.
So the scripture isn't clear on who sends people to hell?
No, I think that the beauty to them on theism is they can always post hoc rationalize or make stuff up. Like I render problem of evil issues to people, and once I ask if God allowed evil or intends for evil, they'll not agree. Then later when I point out the issue, they'll eventually agree. So I guess my thing is that it's better to ask the person what it is that they do accept. Because if it turns out that you're talking...
I don't really care about the person. I care about what God does. It's about what God does, not about what the person does.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a God, so you're going to have to ask them what they think their position is. Otherwise, you might just be building a straw.
Okay, so from your expert opinion, do you think that most people believe that God could send them to hell?
I think he creates this, in the internal critique, he creates all the circumstances necessary. So yeah, like if A causes B, causes C, causes D, and D is someone going to hell, then A causes D, right? It's just like some transitive notion. It's going to be to me. But a theist might disagree.
Being in hell. Excuse me?
I was just saying that's the case, but a theist might disagree. That's all I was saying, is just so that way you can make sure this is only going to talk towards people who hold that view, is all I'm saying. There's other people that wiggle out of it. That's what religion is.
Because I think it's the bullshit view. I'm trying to,
Sure.
What I'm basically trying to get to is, if God sends people to hell, he will make the devil a happier being.
I'm really confused.
I'm a little confused because I don't really know, because we're not religious. Like my tactic is to understand what the person is saying. I can't speak for other people. I can speak for what I think that they believe based on the text. But if you talk to any religious person, you know that can go 100 different directions based on how they interpret the text. It's just easier to ask the person what they accept and then derive like an uncomfortable. So maybe this is a difference between our tactics. I want to know what somebody affirms, what propositions in their view they affirm, and then if I can show, like the last caller said about proving a negative, we could show it. We can show God has contradictory properties, and he's like a squared circle, and we both agree that classical logic is true, that you can't have contradictions. Then boom, that we rule that God out. But I'm not gonna get. Okay, look, just let me finish.
You keep making it about what people think. I don't care what people think. I care about what's true.
And I don't really care what you think. So we're gonna move on to another caller. Let's go to AJ in Texas. All right, AJ, we got you. Hey, how you doing? He says you're a theist. You have evidence for the existence of flying spaghetti monster, and that you have a personal relationship with them. So I'm interested on that.
Yes, sir. So, I don't know how you exactly prove a relationship, right? I can tell you, like, whenever I do something wrong, right, I have this being that, like, he doesn't talk to me like the way you're talking to me, but he talks to me in, like, a different way, right? And he tells me what is moral and what is not moral, right? And also, I can deductively prove that the flying spaghetti monster exists.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. So basically the idea is, right, that we live in a complex universe, correct?
I don't know.
Sure.
Okay, right?
I'll grant you that.
So, if we live in a complex universe, right, then that means that there has to be a creator because complex things need a creator, correct?
No.
And the creator...
Oh. That doesn't logically follow. There's nothing that logically, it doesn't logically follow that something is complex, therefore it's design. In fact, I would say, like, complexity is not a hallmark of design. Simplicity would be, right? If I'm coding something, why would I make my code, like, way more complex if I can get the exact outcome in a much cleaner way? It seems that simplicity is a hallmark of design from my perspective. But Ben, what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, that's exactly my thought. There is no reason to make the leap from the universe is complex, and anything that's complex has a creator. You have to demonstrate that to us. Why should I believe that premise?
Well, I just kind of assumed that most complex things had a creator. But
so you made an assumption. So you don't actually know if that's a sound premise, right? So that's already a problem.
Oh, okay. So, well, if you use, like, the argument from ignorance, right? If I can't think of another being or another explanation besides the flying spaghetti monster that created the universe...
Why are you using a fallacy as a good argument? Like, you just admitted that's an argument from ignorance.
It's a non sequitur that complexity therefore God. That's just a non sequitur, right? So we're, like, piling up fallacies at the moment.
The argument apparently works for the Christian God, so why doesn't it work for the flying spaghetti monster?
It doesn't work for the Christian God. I mean, did you wake up and eat a bowl of, like, fallacios this morning? Like, I don't get, like, what is this? I don't understand what's going on right now. Right? We've just explained there's no entailment from complexity.